tonight's meeting, June 1st, 2021. Kathleen Allen.
Here.
Tom Chapa.
Here.
Heather Del Conte.
Here.
Pamela Dowd.
Here.
Lisa Glidden.
Here.
James McKenzie.
Here.
Linda Serino.
Here.
Zeta Olson.
Here.
We will move to the floor to the public. There are 3 items for tonight. Becky Waters, 14 West 4th Street. As a part of the American Rescue Plan and per the article on Syracuse.com dated March 18, 2021, Oswego will receive $9,674,000 in funding. What are the current plans for use of these one-time fundings? Will there be a public discussion prior to the determination of how this money will be spent? Denise Costanza, 266 East 11th. I'm asking the same question that you have been asked numerous times. What are the plans for fall? Are the kids going back full-time or not? I don't understand what the issue is. Please explain. The last one is Neil Shaw, 2992 State Route 48. At the May 18, 2021 meeting, the board began a discussion about equity in the Oswego City School District. Can you please share the overall plan that the Oswego City School District will take to continue this discussion over the next year? Who will be in charge of leading this effort, and what steps will be taken within our schools to begin addressing the issue of equity? I am glad to see that the Oswego City School District beginning a discussion about equity. However, I'm also concerned that without a concrete plan, unanimous support from the entire board for this effort, and a clearly identified leader, not much change will be possible. We will then move to the Board of Education. There is one item that the Board of Education accept the resolution listed below, whereas the district is a party to a due process proceeding, and whereas the board desires to avoid the continued time and expense of litigating the due process proceeding. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the terms of the settlement agreement to settle the above referenced matter are hereby approved, and the superintendent of schools is authorized to execute the settlement agreement on behalf of the Board of Education and the district. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? This is a roll call vote, so Kathleen Allen? I'm sorry, I didn't hear Kathleen.
She dropped off the meeting a minute ago.
Okay, I'll come back to her. Tom Chapa?
Yes.
Heather Del Conte?
Yes.
Pamela Dowd?
Yes.
Lisa Glidden?
Yes.
James McKenzie?
Yes.
Linda Serino?
Yes.
Kathleen Allen?
I'm sorry, my computer, my Wi-Fi went down. I missed it.
This is a roll call vote, Kathleen, for the settlement agreement of the Board of Education. Would you like me to read it for you again?
Yeah, sorry, my
That's okay. That the Board of Education accept the resolution listed below, whereas the district is a party to a due process proceeding, and whereas the board desires to avoid the continued time and expense of litigating the due process proceeding. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the terms of the settlement agreement to settle the above referenced matter are hereby approved, and that the superintendent of schools is authorized to execute the settlement agreement on behalf of the Board of Education and the district.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passed 7-0. Next is the superintendent's report with Dr. Calvin.
Good evening, board. Great to see everybody back tonight. We have a number of items that we'll just go through with you, and we'll just kind of go ahead and get started. Okay, Matt, go right ahead. So first, in terms of highlights, I'd like to start by highlighting a specific group of our students who I'm very proud of, and that is our seniors. The last week or so, we've had an opportunity to have some senior activities, one of which is the recent senior breakfast, and enjoyed being with our seniors just last week. I spent time with them on the Thursday breakfast that was there, and was able to make it around and talk with a number of our seniors. And what a fantastic group of young people, very smart, very bright, and really looking forward to the future. many of which have talked about ways that they like to come and give back to our community, and I have shared with them that we welcome them coming back and sharing with us for sure. Just a great group of young people. I'm looking forward to seeing them on graduation. They have a couple of events that are coming up. I know the senior picnic, the senior dinner dance, and then also we have the graduation, of course, that's coming up. The kids are all looking forward to it, and I just want to congratulate them on all of their hard work and their efforts over these last number of years, and especially during the pandemic. You know, one of the things that these young people shared with me was that even though that there were some challenges during the pandemic, they have not wavered in the fact that honestly they want to continue to go and do great things for our community and make people very proud. So just really a great bunch of kids, and I just want to say congratulations to them and highlight them tonight. Okay, go right ahead, Matt. Couple updates. First of all, I just want to share the district is continuing to move forward as we are almost now winding up the year. We are now continuing to work on summer programs and making sure that things are set with respect to summer school. We recently had a vaccination clinic, which I believe was very successful. We had, as the newspaper highlighted, our vaccination clinic here. The first clinic we had hundreds of people that came. Nearly 300 folks showed up. And certainly the county is looking to probably do a couple more of these in the future. And so if those opportunities present themselves, we'll certainly bring that back to the board. But our first clinic, I would say, was extremely successful. Community came in and just kind of worked really well with the county, and things went extremely smooth. As I've shared just recently, we do have a number of events that are coming up, especially for our senior group. We have our dinner dance. We have the senior picnic out at Seabreeze, and then we have graduation coming on the 26th with a rain date of the 27th. With respect to athletics, we have recently increased our spectators amount in terms of who can come and how many can come. That number is now up to 500, and people have been just great coming in, doing what needs to be done, and we appreciate them working with us. In terms of the planning for next year, that's happening right now. So we're now putting together a framework, and our plan is then to come and bring that framework to our community and get input from the community, which is required to do, by the way, as we kind of move forward. I would like to share that our plans right now that we're working on is 5 days coming back for everybody, right? We believe that we'll be able to do that. The only concern that we have right now is we're similar to every district across the state. We're waiting for any guidance that the state gives. We hope we can get it sooner than later, and that doesn't change around at the last minute on us. And we're really looking at what's going to happen with transportation. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of whether they will allow more kids on the bus. I'm thinking they probably will. There's been a lot of changes around transportation, like, you know, just flying on airplanes, people can sit next to each other now. There's no middle seat. So I'm thinking that we'll see, as more vaccinations happen, some changes with respect to transportation, but that's the one thing we are waiting to get information on, and any guidance that comes from the state. We're expecting new guidance, hopefully from the governor, within the next week or so. One of the things that we do need to do that we'll come back and ask the board about is our code of conduct. Every year we have to make sure that we look at the code of conduct and update that. At our next meeting, prior to the meeting, we would like to spend a little time looking at that with the board. So I'll be sending some information out about putting together a special hearing. It will take us probably about 30 to 40 minutes to do that. But the goal is to look at our code of conduct. Every year we do have to review that by law, and then just make sure that if there are any changes, that we make those changes. The last thing here, that just in terms of an update, is that we are moving forward with our capital and emergency soil projects. We are pretty much all set with the phase 2 project. We're now working on phase 3. And one of the things we're working on, and we'll talk about in just a moment, is the track. That's in the process of being done now. The emergency soil project is up and moving, and so far things have been going really well. So tonight I have on with me Craig, who is here, and I believe Corey's going to be joining us as well. Hello, Craig. Thanks for being here. And I wanted to just share a little bit about the track. Matt, can we just go forward to the track slides, and then we can come back to this other information, please? And so, go ahead. All right. So, you know, in 2017, there was an original package of equipment that was put together for consideration of the capital project for review. And basically, as the project became more developed, the scope got more refined. There were certain items that were removed from the project around the track. This was because some items was felt that some of those items may not have been needed. And again, this was back in 2017. It predates my time for sure. We believe it also with Nancy and also Rhonda predates their work on this. But what we understand is that there was some items that were pulled out because either we felt like we had them or we really didn't kind of quite need them as a district, that some of the items which could be considered standalones could be purchased directly from the supplier and it would be more cost effective. So at the middle school, the items that were provided and installed was the resilient track surfacing and track marking colors, discus circle and cage with safety net, a shot circle and toe board, shot putt landing pit, and then a long triple jump sand area. Go ahead, Matt. There were also some items that were not provided, and the items that were not included were the long and triple jump pit and sand catchers and covers, pole vault box with lid, international standards with extenders and pads, the pole vault mat package, a high jump mat package, and then weighted track crossing mats. You go ahead, Matt. And so as we were kind of working here on the project, at least I had at least one of the board members that mentioned to me, and that was Pam. There was a question about do we have any, covers for the sand area for the long and short jump, and are there any other things that were included, especially while we're doing this, to make sure we're doing everything right and getting as much as we could. And so I did reach out to the board to share that I would do some research, and here is the information that we learned in terms of what was missing, basically. So I did ask Corey and also Craig to kind of look at what was not there, and then what could we get, and what it might cost us. So they did do some research on this. So the first piece was the long and triple jump pit with sand catchers and covers. So there's 3 different options. They range from 16,000 up to 100,000. So option 1 has a sand catch system, which goes to 100,000. It includes concrete curbed form assemblies, sand catcher assembly, metal grate, mat supports, and rubber mats. And there are a quantity of 4 different things there. Option 2 has a pit cover, no sand catcher. It's customized size inserts with track surfacing for 65,000. And then option 3 is a weighted mesh cover, no sand catchers at 16,000. Go ahead, Matt. There was also some pole vaulting items that you could certainly get if you'd like. It's a pole vault box with lid, and it replaces the existing one that's there. It's about 28,000 in terms of cost. There's a pole vault international standard with extenders and pads, and that would replace the existing for 20,000. There's a quantity of 2 of those, you should know. The pole vault mat package, replacing the existing at about 70,000. There is a high jump mat package at 20,000. It would replace the existing. A high jump adjustable standard with steel sheet base at 2,500. We would need only 1. So there's 2 options with that. There's a black rollout rubber option or a weighted track mats, crossing tracks option. We believe that the option 1, if you're going to get that, would be the best option. Go ahead, Matt. And so with those things that are there, if the district wanted to purchase those things, the cost could be between $159,000 to $243,700. The cost for that, we at this time believe that it would be better to take it out of, probably our own general fund or reserves as opposed to out of the project, because some of these items are equipment, which means they're not aidable. So it may not be the best thing to do trying to get it all out of the project. But we wanted to share with you, we went back and did some history on this and to show you what was ordered, what was originally there that was pulled out, and what are items that we could still kind of get if you'd like to get them while we're doing the work right now. So the one benefit of getting these items that are asked for is if the board wants to, see the district be able to hold sectional kinds of events, most of these items are things that you will need to be able to do that in the future. So we just kind of wanted to share a little bit with you so you could see what was there and available before we get to moving through this project. So Craig and Corey, if you want to share a little bit, I've kind of tried to sum it all up, and then we're going to take questions from the board and see interest from the board. Okay, Craig and Corey.
Craig, you want me to go or you want to go?
You go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And Dr. Galvin, that was a great summary of kind of items that we had looked at. And I really don't. There's not much that I can offer in addition. But like you had said, is that quite a bit of the equipment that is mentioned here is really standalone. There's really no installation required for any of the pieces. So it's something that can easily be, basically purchased directly, and that way you're not going to have like contractor markup or anything on with regards to that. And I have spoken with a manufacturer of the equipment, and they kind of gave me the ballpark numbers, and they are available. I guess with regards to their ordering, if it is something that the district wishes to pursue, they are things that they can get in the queue, so that way you would be on track to have some of these items replaced and or improved upon by next track season. The biggest one that would require a little bit of more extensive work would be with regards to the sand catcher system for the triple jump, long jumps. And for those that don't, maybe aren't familiar with the track program, basically the triple jump, long jump landing areas are sand pits that right now and in many districts, when an athlete hits the sand plants, the sand is displaced. So what the sand catcher system is basically a 2-foot wide graded on 3 sides of it. So that way when the sand is displaced, it goes into this grate system. The school district can then remove the grates and shovel the sand from that storage area back into the pits. Whereas right now, for example, it's surrounded by lawn, pavement, so the sand gets displaced onto those surfaces instead. So it's those aren't anything that you need in order to run sectionals or anything, but it is something that makes it easier on upkeep, building and grounds department, that sort of thing. But other than that, the rest of the stuff is pretty standard. It would be replacing some mats that you have now that have been damaged. I talked to Rhonda last week, and one of the things is like with regards to the steeplechase, just over time, some of the barriers had rotted out on the bottom. And it's currently a additional element to your track program that they would like to offer. So it's items like that this would basically entail and cover for you.
Corey, we have a question from Heather.
I saw that on my screen that it popped up, but I don't know how to check to see what the question was.
No, she'll speak it. She raised her hand. There you go.
Thank you, Craig. I'm just trying to, I'm a little bit, so there isn't anyone on this board, I don't think, that was around when these conversations were being had. I do think Nancy and Rhonda were around, but this board was not. And so I'm kind of confused. Were these items originally in and then taken out? Were they items that people decided weren't beneficial or we didn't need to have them? I'm just confused as to how we got here.
Well, Corey can kind of probably update a little bit more, because this has been almost a 10, 15 year plus process. So we've gone through a couple ADs, we've gone through a couple administrations. The board members that were part of this, Mr. Tripp and Mr. DeCastro and their era that kind of wasn't part of the planning of a lot of this site work. I can tell you that the emphasis, as we were developing this pre-referendum, which is the 2017-16, prior to our first vote that we went through, was focusing on making sure that the project was balanced to a point of we had infrastructure work, we had program development, and we had the stadium. And a lot of attention was being drawn for whatever reason towards the stadium, as that was really the main part of this project, and it wasn't. The main part was a lot of the infrastructure work that we're required to do by the building condition survey. So I think part of the discussion was, well, what do we absolutely need to do at the middle school versus what do we want to do? And the emphasis behind the middle school track reconstruction had to deal with some of the safety issues that were at the track. The surface was basically in some areas delaminating. It had exceeded its expected life. It needed to be replaced. And that was kind of the guiding focus of the work at the track. Some of the other areas, and I think, Corey, you can speak to them, I believe some of these other areas like the discus and the other areas that were reconstructed also fell in line with those things. Kind of needed to be updated if we're updating the track surface. They weren't the I guess the frosting on the cake. It was the cake that needed to be dealt with.
Wait, I don't mean to interrupt you, Craig, but was that when there was going to be also a high school track? Because I do understand kind of minimizing things at the middle school when you have, modified kids running there. But when that track is all we have, it does seem to change the equation a bit. So I guess
the high school track was actually a walking track. It was not supposed to be used for competition from one of the, I guess, options that was reviewed at the time. So the old Wilbur Field was going to be redeveloped, and I think we had a 3 or 4 lane track that we were putting around there for basically practice or PA or phys ed use during the day. But it was not going to be your competition. Competitions were always focused towards the middle school.
Right. So if I can just and maybe offer a little bit extra. So basically from what had happened is as the program had developed, there were some other needs that were identified by the district that kind of put equipment that could be purchased where you're not going to get aid on it anyways a little bit ahead. So items like that were storage that we had shown, and we had an alternate for underneath the bleachers behind the high school, a new maintenance building over at the middle school that Dave would have benefited from, an alternate for a new scoreboard at the middle school. And those are things that weren't originally discussed. And after the project after the referendum had voted upon, those were kind of items that had taken priority, over equipment that would be purchased and not aided anyways. So those were the ones that kind of took the emphasis on it. So what could have been done is this equipment could have been put in as another alternate per se, and the number that you would have gotten pretty much would have been, here's what the costs are, and then a contractor markup on top of it, because they're going to order it, assemble, and turn over to the owner. So that type of an alternate, when they were prioritized, or just seems were very low on kind of the wish list of people, that storage, scoreboard, and you try not to have too many alternates to where then the contractors get a little overburdened with putting money assigned to items outside the base bid. So that's kind of why they were pushed down on the list and not ultimately put into the project. I hope that helps. Okay. And Pamela has her hand too.
Thank you. There was some drainage issues in the throwing area, like as the kids would throw, they literally would end up throwing into sometimes a pit or a pond.
Yes.
Was that addressed?
Yes. So the shot put discus, the shot put landing area, the shot put pad, discus pad, the new cage for the discus, those were all addressed, along with like the regrading of the field, adjusting the planarity on there, and then recoding the track. So everything that really is something that you need a site contractor to take care of was all addressed. The only one that really wasn't would be if you wanted to add on those additional landing areas. Now the landing area is nothing for that. Everything that you have now is perfectly installed and usable. There's nothing that's unusable about it. So it would just be basically buying some of the standalone equipment just to supplement what you have.
Okay, so I'm a little confused like Heather is too, because in the whole course of everything, even before the vote of the capital project, that the community voted for, I think they were under the impression that because there wasn't going to be a track at the high school, that I'm sorry, that we were getting something a whole lot better at the middle school. I think the community thought that. I understand what you're saying, that after the fact that different priorities arise and stuff, but you know, again, I'm going to come back to the fact that this is like one of the very few no-cut teams. Anybody, anyone can join track and field. You don't want to run? You can throw, you can jump.
So
They invite everyone and anyone. So I'm just flustered that
So
that this
Well, Pam,
particular
what is keeping-
sport is
what has been taken away?
well, they don't have a track this year for because we had to push
Well,
up
yeah.
construction from the summer to last fall, so it took away their track. It's just that I don't know. They just seem to be forgotten about, and I don't know. I just think our facilities could have been a whole lot better, and I'm just slightly disappointed because I'm one of the community members, and I guess I thought that the middle school track would be a little just brought up a little bit better, upgraded more.
Pam, if I may just, so for example, right now you have 2 pole vault areas. You have one set of brand new pads that were purchased back in 2008, 2009. So we weren't adding on to a new pair of pads. Those were brand new at the time when the project was being put together to go out to bid. Same thing with your high jump pads. So, but those are 2 of the items that Dr. Calvin had mentioned that were on that list of items that could be purchased. But what you have now, what's being used, there's nothing wrong with it. They're not torn or ripped or, 30 years old. They're still very good condition of what they are.
Are they take them out of the shed and put them back into the shed, or they're not permanent out there with the covers? Correct.
No pads are permanent out there. They basically put them out in the spring and they put them away and they store them in the summer after the program is done. So there's nothing that is impacting the program of the track and field students. Out of everything, they still have gotten a better program because they've got the discus shot put has been completely redone, new surfacing. Everything was flood tested, so that way we could identify any low areas, depressions that may have been on the track surfacing for the high jump, and then all the runways for triple jump, long jump, and pole vault have all been replaced. So it really is just new hurdles or new pads, and generally those are items that are out of your general operations budget or athletic budget.
Yeah,
those are what was not provided.
Yeah, I mean, you had a very good quality facility before, and we've just enhanced it and improved it and upgraded it. So I still think you have an exceptional facility for the students and for any competitions you want to run. If you want to run sectionals, it's really a great location. So, so I think that
we don't have a concession stand.
No,
that was mentioned, I think, at some point early in the plans, because again, this is your varsity area now, and so whomever will benefit from concession. I know it used to be, the track team. The parents would do that. Now, whether it's going to be somebody different, but that's not there. So they're.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one thing. I'm just slightly disappointed. I thought that it would be just better than what we're getting, but it's okay. We can work on purchasing the other items that are standalone and cheaper, like you say, not through the whole package.
When you're saving money, you call it saving money. When you purchase some of those things off state contract because it's already been bid and you have some options to get what you specifically want. And when you bid it as a contractor, there's always markup and profit that they add on to it. So there's advantage to that. Unfortunately, these things are not considered aidable. Otherwise, it makes more sense because then you're getting, 85 cents on the dollar is coming back to you from the state. We did include, though, in this project, this phase 2, a total reconstruction of your toilet facilities in that area, as well as an outbuilding. Unfortunately, because of financing, we weren't comfortable selecting those with the bids, but we are carrying those through. So as we develop the future phases of work, that is something that we know what the value of as of this date, and we can keep that in mind for future projects. So hopefully we'll be able to roll those things into, before the project's done, but I can't make any guarantees the way the market's been.
No, right. No, if you could predict the future, you wouldn't be in our meeting.
Right.
Thank you, Craig.
Sure.
I think Jim had a question.
No, I'm good. Craig actually answered it. I was going to reiterate, Pam, it is a bit frustrating where we are right now. But, I'd like to look to the future. Let the past guide us to a better one, but we can't change it, right? So we are where we are. Our seniors will be honored in Hannibal this coming Wednesday or tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. So that's great. Craig answered what my question was. Are we ready to run every event the next time we do track season? And will we have the proper facilities to do it? And if I heard him correctly, the answer is yes. And so that was just what I was going to try to make sure we knew.
Jim, the only thing I would add to that, however, is that in speaking with Rhonda the other day, you currently do not run steeplechase during your events. You never have. But that's something that she would like to add to the program. So that is something that you do need to get the new hurdles for that in order to run it. But every event that you've run in the past, with the exception of the steeplechase, 100% is able to continue on.
Okay, I thank you for bringing that up, Corey. I haven't been to all the away track meets this year, but I haven't seen a steeplechase yet. So it'd be interesting to find out how many people actually do run it.
There's not many that run it at this time. So it definitely, by her wanting to add that to the program and to what the district offers to other athletes in the area, it definitely will be an improvement, to your facility to have that as an option.
Okay, thanks again.
I think you need steeplechase to have sectionals. I think that's a part of sectionals. That's what one of the things we would need.
My understanding is yes, that's correct.
Yep. I think Kathleen had her hand up as well.
I do. I share Pam and Heather's frustration with this, and Jim's too. And I hope that going forward, because there's still a lot of project left, that we have the forethought to make sure that this doesn't happen to another sport in the future because there's still a lot of project left with those fields. So hopefully we won't have to look back, hindsight, and frustrated again. And you're thinking ahead saying, okay, we'll have this one done by the time it's lacrosse and by the time it's baseball, so that we're not shifting these kids around again.
Yeah. You're referring to like the scheduling and timing of the work completion versus the season starting.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so board, what we will do, if all right with you, my plan is that what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll give you a chart of all the things that we'd like to order. I have spoken with Rhonda, and she would like to see if we can get the full package, get everything possible in, and make it really nice. So we'll get the package, we'll put everything assigned to a price. I'll send that to the board, and then at the next meeting, you'll have my recommendations. And then if okay with you, we'll just go ahead and purchase them once approved by you. And again, in terms of funds, we're thinking that we probably would not be bringing this out of the capital project, but it would be funds that would either have to come out of reserve or out of a general fund. And we'll let you know exactly where that amount would be coming from, so that way you can give the final approval and you'll have all the information. I see Tom has a question.
Yes, Mathis, I just wanted to make sure we could break out steeplechase, itemize each sport and each everything that would be needed for each sport, so we can look at it that way as well.
Excellent.
For each activity.
Yeah. Okay, we will get that together for the board, and then if that's okay with the board, we'll proceed in that way. Does that sound good to everyone? Right, okay? All right. All right, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Corey. We appreciate you coming on.
Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you all. Bye.
Matt, could we go back to the slide around the strategic planning, please, if you could, at the strategic plan update? Board, one of the things that we have been working on, aside from, just making sure we make it through the rest of the year here and get the school year ending off on a great note, is our strategic plan. So we've been working on the strategic plan. We've had now 5 meetings, if I remember correctly, and we continue to make good progress with the team. We have stakeholder involvement, of course, so we have our teachers, our administrators, support staff, parents, some community members, and our goal is to really make sure that we end up with a great product that we can use as a guide or a pathway to kind of move us forward as a district. So some of the focus areas that we have already been working through include our mission, our vision, our core beliefs. We've been looking at metrics, how we will measure, what we'll use to measure, as we kind of move forward ourselves, and then also strategies that we'd like to use moving forward to help, again, guide the work that we're doing. I believe last week I sent out a number of all of the minutes to all of you all, and several weeks before that I think I sent out all the information as well, so that you can see all the things that are going on with this committee. Buy-in in this process is very imperative in all the areas. In fact, we don't move on with the work until there's buy-in where people feel that not only can they live with it, but that they can support it or highly support it. So after we kind of get finished with all of the planning process pieces here, what we'll do is certainly come in and give you a stakeholder presentation so that you can kind of hear the whole plan and understand it. And if there are things that the board certainly wants to make sure that we see in the plan, we can make sure that those items are there. We have another meeting that's scheduled for tomorrow afternoon that will kind of move us to the next level with respect to the planning. So I'm going to go over in just a minute some of the items so you can see some of the work that's done, but I see we have a question before I can move on with from Heather.
Well, maybe I should just wait till the next slide, I guess. But I was going to ask, just in response to one of the items that was that came to the public today, is that equity discussion, and how is that reflected in the strategic plan?
Sure.
Is that on the next slide?
Sure. So yes, the whole equity piece, we are setting core beliefs, and certainly equity is one of those pieces that we are discussing. And then in terms of strategies, we're still developing strategies. So how do we make sure that we flesh that out in the work that we do? So certainly equity will certainly be a part of this work. So we're at a draft level right now, but there are a number of items that are being discussed. Equity has come up in the conversations. Tom, you and Jim have both been there. Zeta, I think you've been there as well. Did you want to add anything else to that in terms of discussions around equity or any of these other areas?
The only thing I was going to say is, Heather, we have brought it up repeatedly, and make sure it's there. And I see this thing as a whole sketch that we're doing, and then it'll come back, to us as the board as well, and we'll be able to respond to it. But I think having everybody's eyes on it from so many different stakeholders within the community has been a great way to flesh it out and to get commitment all up and down, from everyone. So, but equity has been continually referenced along, so I think it will be there for sure.
Jim or Zeta, anything else you'd like to add at all before we move on? No? Okay. All right. So you can go to the next slide and you can see some of the drafts that we've been working through. And actually, in terms of core beliefs, you'll see collaboration and equity there. I believe that will be kind of moved around into other areas throughout our work on tomorrow. So you can see some of the work that we've been doing around mission. We've been tossing out ideas around mission. We've been looking at vision and trying to come up with a new vision statement. Core beliefs, in terms of some of the things that we believe in, like students come first, everyone can learn and grow. We value honesty, integrity, self-discipline, and perseverance. And the self-discipline is something that we need to have a discussion about. We'll do that tomorrow. Data and evidence informs our decisions. We promote creativity and innovation. Diversity is embraced and celebrated. We provide a safe environment that supports and engages our learners. Everyone's treated with respect and dignity, and then collaboration and equity. So certainly conversations have been had around equity. We believe that some of this will be revised again tomorrow before we kind of get to our final product. You can see here some of those strategies, and really there are 4 pillars that we're looking at right now, which will be support strategies. The first are strategies that are around engaging our students. The second are strategies that involve supporting our students in our learning environment. The third is partnering with our community partners, which includes our parents and also our business sector, our folks who work with us in the community. And then the fourth strategy is really built around building, optimizing the efficient use of district resources. At the top, you will see we are looking at performance targets and metrics. So we have been looking at data from our district and using data to help drive a number of our decisions and our goals that are being set. We've been looking at, for example, graduation data, students with disabilities in terms of how their data is coming out. We have been looking at the percentage of children who are passing, who are actually meeting state standards around ELA and math outcomes. So a variety of different data we've been looking at, and based on that data, we are setting targets. So for example, right now with our graduation rate, we know we are at anywhere between the range of 80 to 81% of graduation rate. That is not acceptable, really, to us. We'd like to see that number increase and get much better. So we're now setting targets. Each year, our goal is for the next 3 years is to set a range of targets, right? What we'd like to see is ourselves at least get anywhere in that 90% or better. So we're going to set some targets each year for over the next 3 years that we believe are, certainly targets that we can work towards and meet. And by the way, what we've made sure is that whatever we do, there's flexibility. We expect to bring this committee back together at least 2 to 3 times a year, every year, to look at what's happening, what's going on, to do work as subgroups, and then to actually evaluate, is what we're doing actually working? And if we need to make some changes with targets or core beliefs or strategies, the plan is open enough so that it has that flexibility that will be built in, that we can make some changes where we need to. At the bottom, you will see how we, basically after everything that we work on, we look to get strong support, or, we try to see if this is something that people can live with. We also look to see if there are areas that people still have questions or they cannot support. And when we have any of these kinds of areas that come up where people can't, support or they have questions, we stop. We stop for a moment, take a minute to reflect out loud and understand what's going on. And then once we figure out what the issue is, we make revisions. And our goal is, again, we don't move on in this planning process unless we truly have support. Let me see, Jim or Tom, I hate to put you on the spot, or Zeta, your thoughts about the support, the metrics piece, the strategies. Can you share a little bit your experiences if you could?
Yeah, I'm willing to speak a little. Though Heather raised her hand. I don't know if she has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Heather.
Oh, it was just a quick question. I'm looking at the vision statement. What does it mean to graduate a student with discovery?
Yeah. So we are discussing that, right? So each week we've been developing.
I don't think that makes sense.
Yes. So as I said, this is a draft. Every week we come back and we keep talking about it and refining it. This actual vision statement has changed at least, I would say, 3 or 4 times. Would you all agree, basically? So every week we drill down. What do we mean by this? What do we mean by that? And so it's a work of art. I'm just sharing with you drafts, basically, not the final product. I hope that helps, Heather. Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to start by thanking everybody who has sat through all these meetings to do this. I think it's the first time I've ever been part of a process like this, and it's been very enlightening to me. And I think it's good that we have teachers and administrators and parents who are involved, because it does take a team to come up with a vision as big as we're talking about. And what I've most actually appreciated are some of the community members who've been involved, because what we're really trying to do is not only come up with a way that we envision ourselves, but also the way that the community can buy into what we're doing. And so the community has to understand what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we're looking to do. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, or whether you're just a community member taxpayer. I do think it's important to understand what the mission and the duties of the school are. So I think bringing in the group that Dr. Calvin has, it's been really good, in my opinion, to kind of work through this. And like he said, it is still a work. Some of these things we come up when we say graduate every student, right? Versus aspiring to graduate every student. What does discovery, all these things are really being hashed out. And we have 1 or 2 more meetings as part of our initial work. And then, as Dr. Calvin said, we'll bring it to the board. And as I understand it, this is not just this workshop. This is working year after year to make sure that we pay attention to the process, which is important because you come up with something, and then if you don't pay attention to it again, who knows if you're actually working on it, right? So I like the way we're moving forward, and I thank Dr. Calvin for putting this together for us.
I'd like to say as well, I think it's been a great process, and I agree with Jim, eye-opening for me as well, to be able to sit and get perspectives from everybody within the whole system and without the system, people from parents and also other stakeholders in the community. And I think that clarifying this, and it is a piece of art in the sense that we're continually modifying, adjusting, but once we get it down and it's verbalized and it's clear, and then it can be communicated throughout the community, and you get, I don't like the term buy-in, but get commitment from everyone. The more specific we can be, the more we'll be all on the same page. And I said before, I think, can we do this without the community? Potentially, but with them, we'll be so much stronger to have that support from every level throughout the community, whether those are agencies, whether they're parents, whether they're other social agencies or any agency within the community. Once they know where we're going and everybody's on the same page, it'll be an easier lift, with that many more hands on board. So I'm glad, and it's been exciting for me to see it from this vantage point as well. So thank you.
So the work is not done yet. We have still several meetings to work on and drill down to really make sure that what we come up with, that it's clear, that it's concise, that it's measurable, and that we can get buy-in and commitment from our community. So Heather, you kind of came up with, hey, what do we mean by discovery and pride? We are having those conversations every time we get together and say, what do we mean when we say inspire, empower our kids? Are those the right words? Do we need to revise those words? Do we need to change some of those words? And so we go through a series of times to really look at what we're saying, and to revise wherever we need to. We're not done yet. We've got some work to do, but I just wanted to share what's happening with the board so the board understood a little bit about the process and what's going on. And as you kind of go through your minutes, you can understand what we're doing. Any other questions from the board as we move forward? Heather?
Just a couple of questions. One is for the community's know-how. Can you explain how the committee was chosen? Only because I have had people ask me,
Sure.
How come I couldn't have been a part of the committee, or I reached out and it was already full. And because I'm also confused because typically committees come before a board and are board approved first. So I'm just, for everyone's sake, if you could just let people know.
Sure. So what we did was we said, hey, we put a letter out to the entire community and said, we're going to be working on strategic planning. If anybody would like to be a part of that, let us know. And then we got a good bunch of names, and we just started to kind of plug people in. We had some people who originally said they wanted to be on, who couldn't make the commitment. So we added more people based on the list that we had. So it was open. A letter went out to the entire community. Everyone received it. And then people had time to kind of share if they wanted to be a part. And we pulled them all together to be a part. That's how, the committee got going. And
So it was first come, first serve kind of situation.
Yeah. Anybody who wanted to be a part? Yes, it was first come, first serve. Yes.
Okay, now the other confusion, and I know I've brought it up to individuals, but I'm still trying to get my head around it because, the board members do represent stakeholders in the community. That's why we're elected. So this is the first time in my tenure, anyway, that there's been a strategic plan done this comprehensively, and I appreciate getting the minutes. That's fantastic, but I'm still not understanding why more board members couldn't have been a part of the strategic plan. So we are all hearing the information. Because I do think this is part of what we do is vision. And I mean, there's a big piece of what we do. So I'm just a little confused about that too.
So there's generally, when you come up with a strategic plan, generally what happens is you have stakeholders, a representative of each of the different bodies in your district. That's been my experience. It usually isn't a full board that does that. Then it becomes basically a board meeting. So generally what happens is you get constituency groups. You try to get at least 2 members from your board. You get somebody from the parent group. You get a group of people from your teacher group, a couple from your community businesses, partners, whomever. You try to get a bunch of people together who represent the district as a whole. The information does go back to the board. Now, with that said, there are also other opportunities that board members can be a part of. So after this plan is developed, what will happen is we will break into 4 different groups. So an engaged group, a support group, a partnering group, and then a building group. And you'll see those 4 different strategies there. And people from the community, which includes other board members who certainly would like to be a part, can be a part of those subgroups. And they will work on the strategies that are identified in those 4 areas. So even though that original group that came together, there wasn't maybe every board member in that original piece, there are other opportunities. If board members certainly would like to be involved in some of the additional work, there are other opportunities that people can be involved in. And not just board members, but other community members as well. If there are other things, and I've started to reach out to people and say, listen, we've got some 4 strategies. It'd be great if you want to be a part, let us know. So there are other opportunities that will be available for additional input from the board or work with the board, working on some of the strategies or community members. I see Linda has her hand up. Linda?
Heather, in all the years that I've been in this profession as a teacher and as an administrator and now a board member, that is my experience. My past experience is that there are subgroups and then 1 or 2 representatives that go back. I know years ago when I was a classroom teacher and we did a 5-year strategic plan in Oswego, and it was quite an endeavor. And it really did just have certain amount of individuals from each group. But that's been my experience.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm really appreciative of the stakeholder folks who have put in a lot of time. I mean, this is very time consuming, and I'm also appreciative of our board members who have done that. I feel like there is definitely a missing link when you've got a board. This is going to be our visionary plan moving forward, and we're kind of waiting for it to come out, and we aren't at least able to listen, even to hear the stakeholders speak, and there's a lot lost, I think, in translation with minutes. But I think that it would be beneficial to invite the board to at least sit and listen to some of these meetings so that we are hearing the work and we're hearing the input. That's just, I just think that.
And I agree with Heather on that. And it wouldn't be necessarily considered a board meeting. You can have it be a workshop because that's what it's doing. That's what this committee is doing. It's basically a workshop with these things. And I wasn't understanding either because I felt like that's what we're elected to do is what's coming out of that committee, and it felt like a big part of the board was not in touch with what's going on here. And also in the past, there was, I was trying to find it and I am unable to right now, but in the past, there were committees that were working on behalf of the board that were supposed to be board approved and it's in a policy. And I had that policy 2 years ago when I looked it up, and I'm not finding it right now. And that was my concern with when this all happened, because the board was completely out of the loop on how this was going on.
So I think a couple of things at this point. The board certainly will have oversight of this process, right? We'll certainly bring things back. Our goal is certainly to have board involvement. So with all of our committees that we have, we have Capital Construction Committee we just got through talking about. We have board input on that. Certainly where this is concerned, we would have board input on it. And we're always open, even regardless of what it is, to try to get board members involved wherever we possibly can. So with that said, I'm not, in terms of the majority of the board, so I think the majority, which we call it a actual committee or a actual what's the word I'm looking for when you have a majority of the board there,
Consensus.
When you got that group
Quorum.
that quorum, that's what I'm looking for. I think that is when you get to 4, right? So with that said, if the board certainly wishes to kind of come and be a part of the process, or just kind of listen and hear, I can certainly give whomever would like to come in here and hear what's being said, the link, so you can come on and hear what's going on. Certainly, if that's what the board wishes to do, we can do that. If the board wishes for us to record the sessions of the meetings so that the board can hear what's happening at the meeting, we can talk with the person tomorrow. I'll let him know, and we can record the meetings, and then you can watch them and see whatever is what's occurring. Our goal is to certainly invite and partner with the board wherever we possibly can. So whatever the board wishes, that's what we will certainly do to make sure that there is that partnership there from the board. I see Tom and Linda have their hands up.
Yeah, I think Linda was first.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
I do remember, Mathis, that when you initiated the idea of starting this committee, you did ask for representation from the board. Nothing was discussed at that point about the majority of the board feeling like they felt the board should be totally involved in this. I have to restate what I said before. I have never, and I've been through multiple strategic planning, I have never seen an entire board involved in it. I have seen representation. A board member could go and sit if they want to, but I have never, and I'm not taking sides here. I'm just being real. And I think having the PowerPoint, you've got 2 representatives that are telling you the process they're going through. They're more than willing to hear any ideas that any of us might come up with after their presentation. And that's all I have to say about it.
Tom, I think had something, then Heather.
Yeah, I just want to say I understand Heather and Kathleen and the idea of the board and the integration of the board to this process. But I also want to say that the organic nature of this, and to be able to see it coming from the parties involved without the board representing the board and in the process, I think helps foster that communication. But I agree, we just need to solve the problem of all the board integration and understanding as the process is going along. But I do believe that that nature of it and everybody's engagement from those levels is vital, and also will come up with a product that will be fuller and have more comprehension to it. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up. Linda, I don't think we're disagreeing. I'm not asking that the whole board be involved. I think recording the meetings would probably be a good option, or like you mentioned, people could sit in. That has been your experience. I'm just saying, I'm hearing how excited Tom and Jim are. hearing everybody's input and hearing the community input. And I think a lot is lost in translation, just reading minutes and getting the summaries. I'd like to also, feel that energy and hear straight from the horse's mouth what people's ideas are, so that, as we move forward, we all kind of have that, share that experience. And it isn't so that there's the whole board putting the input in, but so that we all are hearing the outside input, and it isn't coming through a filter at all. It's we're getting to experience it firsthand. So I'm talking about, not contributing, but definitely being able to hear or see or listen.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that we were able to further discuss this, because initially I felt like the conversation was something was done wrong, and I don't think any of us want that, and I don't think we want to send that message to the superintendent, because we were part of wanting this. We were asked who'd like to participate. So if this is the piece, I agree with you 100% that, to have it videotaped, and then when we have time to go on and see what's going on, or knowing we can walk in at one of the meetings would be a win-win. So thank you for following up and not getting angry at me. Or I'm usually very quiet, but when I need to have my say when I think this is a wonderful thing, and I don't want negativity to overshadow what's going on here.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, Linda, and I also appreciate your experience. It's just, for me, this is the first time I've been through something like this, and I really do want to benefit from, hearing other people's thoughts and feelings. I think we could all benefit from it.
Well, and you should, because you are highly intelligent. You have super ideas, and you would have a lot to offer to this. But I want it understood that that's how it rolled out. Nobody did anything wrong here.
Totally agree. Absolutely agree. Thank you, Linda.
And my point was exactly what Heather explained. I mean, that's where I'm coming from too on it, is the communication aspect, it's got to be a little bit more clear there in the beginning.
So I'm just going to add in here, I think, again, talking about the past, we can use it to inform the future. I think this may not be as long of a conversation if we would have had some updates to the whole board as we've been moving through the process. But I will say, as part of that, this has really been a very fluid thing. And even in the idea of recording things, we've been doing breakout rooms where you've got now the group of 20 or 30 broken into groups of 4 or 5 that meet for 5 to 10 minutes. Then we come back and discuss as a group. And then you have another breakout group that's reassembled, and it's not the same people. And given our technical things, you can't record that. Even if we were in person, you really couldn't record all of this. So, without every board member who wanted to be present volunteering and actually being present, without getting past some of our, meeting quorum and open meeting laws, I think a lot of this may have been ameliorated by having some more updates. But I will, again, this has changed so much from meeting to meeting, and there's votes in between meetings in these small groups. It's an experience I've never really had before. Tom's laughing. It's very unique. And so I think probably the message I'm hearing to take forward is that because this is a living document, that what the strategic planning group maybe should do is meet one more time, have whatever we flesh out there, and then have a good formal presentation again to the board, right? Because now you've heard it here, then you can hear it again, and we can have that group discussion before anything gets finalized. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So, so We will be working again with the committee again tomorrow. We'll see how that meeting goes. And then once we kind of have what we believe is the product, we will bring that product back to the board. We'll certainly share any minutes or information from the meeting with the board. The recording piece, I will work on that piece tomorrow. Jim is correct. Some of the things, it will be challenging to be able to record it, because at any moment we can break into, the facilitator will break us into 4 or 5 groups with 4 or 5 people in the different groups or more. And all of those sessions, I don't know how they would be able to record them all. In the meantime, if there is a board member who wants to just kind of come on and just watch the process, and you may want to join some of those rooms, just let me know who you are, and I will reach out to the facilitator and let him know, and we'll get you copies of the link. Keeping in mind that we, again, it's kind of first come, first serve basis, because after you reach the threshold for the quorum, then we would, we'd have to kind of rethink how we do that. But if there's someone who wants to join us tomorrow, certainly we'll send you out the link and we'll go from there. Or we can just move to the recording part. Heather and then Tom.
I think that the quorum piece is only if we're engaging in business or conversation, because, for instance, we can all be at a graduation together. We can all be at events together. So I think if it's known that there are certain members of the board that are just joining to just listen in, maybe we could get a decision from our lawyer on that. But I really feel like that's an exception to the rule.
Sure.
If it's labeled a workshop, then then you're covered under us not breaking those open law meetings.
I believe, I think the best thing to do is to check with the lawyer, like Heather said, because I do believe that once I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I think once you have a quorum of people together, that it causes some challenges. But I want to make sure that I'm right, because I could be wrong. Would you mind if I just check with the attorney to make sure? Okay. All right. I think you had something then, Kathleen, again.
Yeah. I'm just who's facilitating this? I guess I wasn't even aware that we had somebody from the outside doing this. Who exactly is facilitating this? What was the cost for it?
Okay, so the facilitator's name is Mr. Sean Brady. I'd have to go back and get the cost for it. I believe when we started the whole thing out, I shared with the board Sean's Brady information that we were able to take it through BOCES, if I remember correctly. I don't have the cost off the top of my head. Nancy, do you have the cost off the top of your head? I can't recall.
It was $18,000, and it's being covered under one of our federal grants.
School improvement grant.
Thanks, Carrie.
All right, and I will go back and see if I can find any of the information from that. If I remember correctly, in one of our board retreats, Kathleen, I remember sharing this information about the strategic planning and about Mr. Brady and about the cost that would be involved, and how typically the cost is over $30,000 or more, but Sean was much more cheaper, and that it can go through BOCES. And I see a couple board members shaking their heads. So I do believe we did discuss this in a retreat, if I remember correctly. I may be wrong, but I think we did.
Right, and what happens just with common practice with the board is sometimes it's discussed, but it's not necessarily agreed on, because it might be just kind of like floated out there as an idea, and then it never comes back. So
No, I think
moving forward, it's just something that needs to be remembered, that
Kathleen, I think that it was discussed and that we all knew about it, but it may have been at one of the board meetings that you weren't getting good reception, or you weren't maybe you weren't at that board meeting. But
Linda, I've been at all the board meetings except recently. I missed one last, but I've been at them steadily, and and my reception is usually okay. But
okay.
Tom, I think you had a question or something there.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer up as a potential solution to solve that. If it does become a quorum issue, I'd be willing to, if somebody wants to come in and we get to that point, I would step away, because I think it's a valuable experience for every board member. So as long as we don't hit that, I'd be able to, step out for that meeting or whatever, if that does become an issue. but I think that could be an easy solution there, so we never hit quorum.
As I said, certainly we can reach out to the attorney, make sure that we have some clarification. And then I'll try to do that. Depending on how late we go tonight, I'll see if we can do it today or tomorrow morning, first thing. And then in the interim, if there's any board member who'd like to be a part tomorrow, just send me your name and we'll certainly try our best to get you on there. And if we can record everything that we can record, we'll try to make sure we get that recorded as well and share that with you too. Would that help, at least in the interim board? Everybody okay with that? Would everybody be all right with that? I'm just making sure. Okay. Are we all good? Okay. All right. All right. So that's where we're at, and we'll continue to work on this process and continue to bring information back to the board. All right. Go ahead, Matt. You can move forward. All right. So our last piece that we want to talk to you tonight about is just the most recent updated information that we have received around the American Rescue Plan, the Elementary and Secondary Relief Fund. So we have an update that's come to us from on the ARP and ESSER grant and how some of those funds have to be used and what's involved in the process. And I just wanted to share with you the latest information and updated info. So Carrie, if you can kind of go ahead and share that with us, that would be great.
Okay, go ahead, Matt, please. So first, you'll see that Oswego School District's allocation was $8.9 million. And with that, the $8.9 million, the districts have to reserve 20% of their allocation to address learning loss. And that address has to be through evidence-based intervention. So our set aside for the $8.9 million will be roughly $1.8 million that we will have to set aside for intervention that responds to students' academic, social, and emotional needs. And it also needs to address the disproportionate impact on student subgroups. Next slide. And within the assurances that we had to agree to with the funding is a commitment to equity. So our access must be focused on pre-K through 12 populations that have most disproportionately been impacted by COVID-19. So there's that equity that Heather has been talking about, that the state also requires that as an insurance for the money being spent. Next slide. The ARP ESSER level priorities as put out by the federal and state government is to address learning acceleration, academic renewal and enrichment, family and community connections, social, emotional, and mental health of students and staff, strategic use of technology, staff development, and the digital divide, and building safe and healthy schools. Next slide. So the timeline for the ARP or ESSER timeline was on March 24th, 2021 was when the funds were awarded to the state. On May 12th, the state then gave us our allocation, which came out to be the amount on the previous slide. May 24th, we had to place in all our assurances that we would follow for spending of the money. As of now, we don't have a timeline for when the plan has to be placed back to the state. There's a whole process for this plan. They stated once we gave our assurances by May 24th, it would come within the next couple of weeks. So I'm still waiting for all the webinars to be released. And then once we have that plan done, we have only 30 days to do our return to school in-person instruction plan. So once we get the plan for how we're utilizing the money, we then have to turn around and within 30 days and give to the state our in-person instruction plan. And all of the funds must be obligated by September 30th, 2024. So starting once we get that plan done and we start receiving the funding, it all has to be obligated and ready to be spent by September 30, 2024. Next slide. So, as I said, within 30 days, we have to have our plan for returning in-person instruction. The federal mandates require that this plan be made publicly available online. It has to be placed so that we can seek public comment. And then once we receive public comment, we have to go back and tweak the plan depending on what the comments are. And then we have to update the plan every 6 months up until September 30th, 2023. Next slide. So the plan, developing the plan to the state, at minimum, we have to implement prevention and mitigation strategies consistent with the CDC guidelines. Utilize the 20%, as I said before, and I spelled out it was almost 1.8 million within up to the year September 30th, 2024, for learning loss. And some of the ideas for learning loss or evidence-based activities could be summer learning and enrichment, extended school days, comprehensive after-school programs, or extended school year. Next slide, please. At the minimum, the plan must also include how we spend the remaining funds once we've taken care of our 20%. The plan needs to address how we will address academic, social, emotional, mental health needs of students, and specifically, again, within the disadvantaged population that have been impacted mostly by COVID-19. We have to demonstrate that we have meaningful stakeholder engagement and input into our plan. We've been talking about pulling together stakeholder committees. Well, we're going to have to do that with this plan for how we're going to spend the money. And then again, it has to be consolidated within the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services plans. And the plans then all lead to how are we going to spend our money? How are we going to complete the ARP ESSER application? Next slide, please. We must continue to engage in meaningful consultation with stakeholders. We have to have the description of provided how we gave the information out to the community and how the community did have input into our plan. So whether we do place it on a website and allow community stakeholders to return information back to us, we have to allow or place in our plan how we're going to gather information from the community. And one of the ways that we're going to do it is having building principals hold within each building a focus group meeting with their stakeholders. So there'll be parents, there'll be teachers, there'll be teacher assistants, different pieces of the stakeholders within the school building. Next slide. So again, switching gears here. The other funding that we did receive is called the CRRSA Act, or the Corona Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act. That also is part of ESSER, but it's a different bucket of money. And our allocation for that was a little more than 3.9 million. That plan, which holds the same rigor of having to have input, is actually due by July 15, 2021. We already know when that plan has to be completed. And the plan is already placed in the portal for us to start working on. And that money has to be expended by September 30th, 2023. So that funds go faster. We have less time to implement and spend those funds. And we have to follow the same guidelines, again, that I do for Title I and also for the ARP spending. So we have to have community stakeholders, we have to have input, we have to follow the guidelines of what we can spend the money on. And again, it's targeting that academics, social and emotional. And we have, the only difference is that we can supplant and not just supplement. We can supplant some of the things that we're already doing within this plan and the ARP plan also. Next slide. And that's it. Oops, sorry. Questions. There wasn't a question slide. Sorry. I know that's a lot to take in.
I see Pam and then Tom.
It's more just a comment than a question, because we did have in our community questions, Becky Waters specifically asked regarding this. I would definitely suggest reaching out to her to see if she would be one of the stakeholders for input.
Absolutely. Sure. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, my question was, so neither of these awards can be utilized for the summer programming now?
Yes,
Okay.
they are going to be, yes.
Okay, even though the deadline for the plan, even though the plan deadline is further out. Okay.
Yeah, the funding came to us, it comes to us earlier. Even though we have to have the plan written, we can start spending or planning to spend the money. And then that will be utilized to help with the summer
Program.
summer programming, sorry.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? Okay, Matt, can you go ahead? I think the only other piece that I wanted to share with the board this evening, separate from that, is just in terms of efficiencies, and just wanted to see where the board was and to try to gauge what your thoughts are. So, as we kind of move through the process of our budgeting piece, one of the things that I heard loud and clear from the board is that, certainly our budget is rising at a level that is concerning. And so, we kind of really need to take a look at this, because there was concerns around the sustainability of the budget in terms of how what's being raised, how much is being raised each year. So one of the things that, if the board is interested in, that I would certainly like to recommend and ask the board to kind of consider is I'd like to do what's called an efficiency study. And what happens with an efficiency study is that you bring in some consultants, some people who are outside of the district who have some expertise in looking at efficiencies, and really trying to figure out, are there areas that we can actually save money for our taxpayers and bring some of our costs down. So generally the consultants that are out there, most have been experts in education. Many of them are former district superintendents, DSs, and there are a number of people who are out there who could certainly do this kind of work. And what I would be interested in, and would suggest to the board, is that we look at as many areas as we can. Look at transportation, our facilities, our staffing structure, contracts that we have, demographics, schedules, student to staff ratios, enrollment trends, and any other items that the board may be interested in looking at and studying. And really, again, the goal is to see, are there ways that we can be more efficient as a district? Are there areas that we can bring costs down so that, we really can do well by our taxpayers and make sure that what we're doing is affordable, especially as we kind of move forward in the future. So if the board would be interested in doing this, what I'd like to do is reach out and get a couple of names of some of the consultants, get costs together, what some of this might cost us. I have done these studies before. In my past experience, I've had them run through our BOCES so that they would be aidable as well. I've actually gotten great success with doing studies, because there are areas that maybe I had not looked at or thought about before. And some of these folks are great and very skilled at helping to find those areas. But I think at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do on behalf of the board is really look for areas that we can save. And not so that we could avoid raising costs when we don't need to, if we don't need to, for sure, with respect to for our taxpayers. So I'm just wondering what the board's thoughts are on that. Nothing set in stone. I would bring it all back to you, but I just wanted to see what your thoughts are around considering such a study. Your feedback, board?
I would be in a.
Go ahead, Linda. And I see Tom, and I also see Lisa. Linda, go ahead.
I would be in agreement. I think it's very, and it's looking at all aspects of our educational system. And I think that we have never done this, and it would be beneficial.
Okay, great. Tom and Lisa?
Yeah, I agree. I think now's the time to do it, particularly as we're undergoing the capital projects that we have. So looking into the future, being most efficient, in terms of maintenance and efficiencies with all our capital, with all our buildings down the road. I think that'd be very important. But again, so we can appropriate the resources to the right places, look at where we can draw back any place we can. I think it would be a good time to do it.
Great. Okay. Lisa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think in especially a budget of something of this size, there's a lot of like inertia and status quo that people just accept and stop really even like considering. So I think having, new eyes on something is always helpful.
Great. Okay. Any other feedback from the board? Okay. And so what I'll do is I'll reach out, get a couple names of facilitators. I'll get prices. I will get content in terms of what they'd be able to study. And then board, in the interest of, as we're working through this, if there are certain things that you say, hey, listen, I wonder if we could look at these items as well. If you could send them to me and all of the board members, then we'll also include that in the content that we share with consultants. And we'll bring you back information and we'll go from there. Okay, board? All right, Matt, can you go ahead on? You just go on to the final slide. We're all set, board. I'd like to thank you for your time this evening. I'm all set. Thank you.
Next is the consent agenda, the high school extra classroom.
I think Pam has a question.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. He skipped through the questions slide.
I'm sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt you during your presentation because I knew you would come back to it. So you mentioned about graduation, and I think that we're down to 2 ceremonies now.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard from some parents, they think that, is it still limited to 2 guests per student?
So what we're doing right now, I think it'll be more than 2 guests per student. We were waiting on Friday. We were told that the governor was going to give us some additional guidance. We had not received that guidance on Friday afternoon at all. So we're hoping to get that this week. But by the numbers now, you can have up to 500 people at events. So we think that we'll be able to do past 2 people for sure. I think we'll probably be able to get to 3 or 4. It really depends on what the governor's final guidance comes in as. As soon as this week, we will share it with everybody, Pam, for sure.
Okay, thank you. And then just on that subject, I'm not sure. I mean, they have, let up on a lot of our regulations, and our restrictions are eased and all. And I think that this senior class, not that everybody has sacrificed a lot of things and given up a lot, but I think, this was their junior year, their senior year. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering and hoping for their graduation. I know typically in the past, there was a stage, and on the stage would be, I believe it's the student council members, which are your class officers. And then I think it was National Honor Society members, and I believe the Board of Education. And I don't think the board needs to be on stage, or even if there is a stage, but I do think that those 2 groups of students deserve their moment in the sun. That, I don't know how many of them normally gave speeches. So I was just kind of hoping that people who are planning are hopefully leaning towards some normalcy in that area.
Yeah. I would say, Pam, we are moving as normal of a graduation ceremony as we can. Keeping in mind, we're still trying to keep people socially distanced, right? We're taking all of the precautionary pieces that are outlined by the state, but our goal is to make it as close to normal as we possibly can, just outside this year. And that's not only with that, but with a number of our other events. So we have, if I remember correctly, next week we have several choral concerts, I think an orchestra concert, a marching band concert that's going to be outside. We have the awards night that's coming up at the high school outside. This week, I believe there was an invitation that went out to the board earlier today. There is a 8th grade event that's happening. We have all the kindergarten graduations that will be taking place, the 6th grade graduations. We're trying to get them as close to normal as we possibly can. So I hope that answers your question, Pam. Yes, we're working very diligently to really work on that graduation piece for sure, to make sure it's as close to normal as possible.
Thank you.
All right, Tom, and then I saw Linda's.
Yeah, I just want to know, for the middle school, are we doing the same thing in terms of numbers, or is there a restriction? I had seen something where people said the middle school was only one guest per student, but is that not the case? I just want to make sure.
Let me check on that with Mary Beth tomorrow morning, Tom, and I'll get the board an answer for sure.
Okay.
Steve, Heidi, do you know if it's just one guest or two? I can't recall. I'm not sure after that.
I thought it was 2 guests per person, but I would have to go back and look at her most recent email about that.
I thought it might be evolving, but it was somewhat where it came as one, and I'd seen conversations and people were remarking about it, and I just wanted to find out, where we were on that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
We'll let you know by tomorrow morning for sure. Okay. All right, Linda, you had a question?
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't sound sarcastic, but with everybody advocating to get back to some normalcy in our lives, I'd like to see the Board of Education get back together like a board. Maybe we could have our meetings outside, but at some point we need to get back to the table.
So that's actually a board decision, not Dr. Calvin that's our choice. So why don't we discuss it at items from the board? Because I do know that there are members that have strong feelings about it. And Linda, I'm with you. We need to have that conversation. I had it on my list.
Okay. All right. Did I answer all questions? Pam, anything else? Are you all set there? Okay. All right, thanks, board. Thank you.
Okay. Next is the consent agenda, high school extra classroom activities report, April 2021, budget status report, April 2021, district financial report, 7/1/20 to 4/30/21, treasurer's report, April 2021, and receipts by source report, capital project change order log, minutes of the regular board meeting of May 18th and May 19th, and the special education report of June 1st, 2021. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Next is personnel, but there is one item that we are going to ask for amendment, and that is item J. It should read $20 for screener stipends and $40 for supervisors. Right now, it states just the opposite. If I could have a motion for the amendment.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. And then personnel with Dr. Sweeney.
Thank you. Good evening. Our first 2 items are retirements, which we'll do together, A and B. Support staff retirements, whereas the following employees have served the students and staff of our school district and have been a most responsible, conscientious, and dedicated staff member in service to the school district. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District hereby acknowledge their faithful service and accept their resignations for the purpose of retirement. We express our grateful appreciation to them both. The first is Anne Marie Clark, who has served our school district since November 4th, 1998 as a stenographer, currently retiring from Minetto. Anne Marie LaTulip, who has served our school district since September 8th, 2015 as a school bus attendant at Transportation.
Motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed.
Okay, and the remaining professional staff recommendations, C through K. C, we have a resignation, Brianna Marquardt, teaching assistant at the high school. D, a dual agreement as presented, effective 6/2. E, professional staff recommendation, 2 leaves of absence, Heather Clark, Stacy Van Waldick as an art teacher at the high school. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know if there's noise in my background or not. F, a professional staff recommendation, 3 probationary periods, Jessica Anderson, elementary education at Riley, Alicia Hafner, childhood education at Fitzhugh Park, Megan Harrison, special education at Layton. G, probationary teaching assistant appointment for Angela Smith at Fitzhugh Park. H, 4 regular substitute appointments, all at Fitzhugh Park, Don Dowd, childhood ed, Jacob Herrick, literacy, Heidi Hulsizer, childhood education, and Jessica Slight, childhood education. I, extra compensatory positions, summer school administrators as presented. J, our extra compensatory position, additional sports screener, supervisor, and an operator as amended and as presented. And then K, the vacation time agreement for rollover. So C through K, Karen.
Items C through K, could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes. I have a question on the probationary appointment, Heidi. As I reviewed all of the appointment resumes, where it says the name of other people who participated in the interview of this position, there were 2 schools where I see that there was no interviewing committee. Is that something that we don't do now?
I'm just checking, Linda, for the paperwork. Oh, I see what you mean. So we do have a couple of folks who served this school year as regular substitutes. And so what happens normally, typically at the building level, is the principal will meet with the teacher. They've had discussions throughout the year with the teacher, with the team, with anyone who may work with the teacher in other capacities. And then depending on the level, they have discussions with either Carrie, class, or myself about whether or not this person will move forward as we have probationary appointments. Several of these folks are serving in the same position that they're moving forward in the probationary, as we had so many folks moving around last year and serving in a second tenure area. Hopefully that
we're still having 4 vacancies, such as a retirement. We're still doing it in the appropriate manner with an interviewing committee?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And then all the folks still would come over and do the second part in terms of a final round with Carrie and me, and then on with Dr. Kelvin.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for asking that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, and then our support staff recommendations. L, we have 2 resignations, Brian Stupp and Tim Wizarek. M, we have a probationary appointment for Cindy Zuber, typist at the middle school. N, we have a number of permanent appointments as a group of school bus drivers and custodial workers have finished their probationary periods. O, our summer appointment for nurses as presented. P, our support staff recommendation for summer transportation. It's the whole batch divided out by category, and they're all appointed on an as-needed basis. So that allows us a little bit of flexibility depending on needs out at transportation. And then Q, our substitute and temporary employees. Karen, do you want to do through Q on that, and then I'll do R separately?
Sure. Items L through Q, could I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any questions?
I had one question regarding the busing and our rate. I know we had a problem in the past and have had in terms of having bus drivers, and we upped our rate to be competitive. And I just want to know if there's any update in retention relative to that, or are we still looking that we don't have enough applicants in that arena?
You know, I would say, Tom, that our issues that have come about this current school year and some of the struggles we have in filling runs have more to do with challenges related to COVID. As many districts and other employers have seen over the last year, the enhanced unemployment has made it challenging in some aspects to encourage folks to come to work. For us, when we do have openings, we haven't always been successful in filling all of them. Tom and his staff have done just a commendable job in filling in those holes as needed. I don't necessarily think our issues come from our current rates. Nancy, jump in if you've talked to Tom and he feels differently, but it has more to do, I think, with the past year and what we've seen. And our hope is throughout the summer and heading into the fall, we kind of get back to a little bit more of a normal situation with employees and new hires.
So we're not necessarily lacking in that area except for the current situation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, and then our R is our amendment of agreement, OCSD, and the administrative group, AAP.
Motion?
Actually, Karen, I'd like to make a motion to table this.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item has been tabled.
And that's all I have for personnel.
Okay. Next will be finance with Nancy Squires.
A is our maintenance agreement with Advantage Sports and Fitness. B is our agreement with Jamesville DeWitt. This is for our health and welfare for our students attending Jamesville DeWitt. C is our annual contract with Four Winds Saratoga. That's for tutorial services at a rate of $35 an hour. D is our stop loss proposal with Tokyo Marine. That is for claims in excess of a limit in our health insurance. E is an agreement with SCORE College and Career Planning. It's a IT subscription, and it's a software that replaces what we used to have with Naviance. And after the first $250, there's no cost for the software at all because we are a Title I school. F is our MOU with SUNY Oswego for the high school programs for 21-22 academic year. This is for our concurrent enrollment for students for language courses. G is our excess workers' compensation contract at a rate of $76,175 per year. And H is our annual Omni service agreement for next year at $2,364. So that would be A through H.
Items A through H. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a quick question on the MOU with the dual enrollment courses. I notice it's for the modern language and physics. Do we have other classes that are also dual enrollment? Is that just a separate MOU? I'm just not
Dr.
sure.
Calvin, would you like me to answer that?
Sure,
Yep.
go ahead.
Yes, Jim, we do have dual enrollment with some other colleges, OCC and CCC. Those are separate agreements. This one is specific to Oswego State for physics and our language courses.
Okay, so those are the only courses we have dual enrollment with Oswego State.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just had a quick question on the Advantage Fitness contract. Which one are we paying. I didn't see anything checked off in terms of on that list, or is that just?
What we do is we usually do a 1-year contract, Tom, and because of the use, the frequent use of the equipment when we were using it every day, we were having someone come in 4 times a week or 4 times a year to service that equipment. We will probably continue to do 4 times a year because we are going to start opening up that area.
Okay, I just was, because no box was checked on that, I wasn't sure what we were agreeing to, or which part. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Next is the student representative discussion. Zeta?
Hello. I guess I'd like to initially apologize for not being able to attend the last board meeting. I missed the beautiful presentation from Mrs. Del Conte on equity, or something that me and my peers certainly appreciated. And I guess also preemptively apologizing if the board does not have an answer to my next question, but in there being multiple ceremonies for graduation, it was conveyed to the entirety of the senior class that an alphabetical split would not be used in dividing the class for the separate ceremonies. But as of Thursday, this information has abruptly changed without explanation. So I guess if the board can offer me some kind of explanation to the sudden change, me and my peers would really appreciate that.
Do you want me to speak for, since it's a school issue? Zeta, I'm not aware of that change. My understanding, and Dr. Sweeney is on with me as well. My understanding is that in terms of the split for the graduation, that the kids would be able to sign up for whatever ceremony they wanted to go to, because they may have friends from a different lettering of the alphabet. So I've not heard that. That's news to me. Dr. Sweeney, do you know anything about that at all?
No, I actually saw the same thing, Zeta, either Thursday afternoon or when I read the newsletter, maybe Friday morning, and I was going to follow up with Mrs. Palmatasso tomorrow, once we were all back in school, to see if that was either a typo or if you're one of the officers, so I'm guessing if you weren't aware of it either, it's something we need to follow back up on for sure.
So we will get an answer tomorrow morning, and we'll make sure something goes out to the community tomorrow to clarify it. Okay.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Now, items from the board. Would anyone have any items?
Just thank you to our faculty and staff. I hope that everyone got to enjoy their little long weekend as we have a push to the end. What is it? 5 weeks? We're almost there. Thank you, everyone. Doing a great job out there.
I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge Mr. Noun, because I know they put up a video in school in his passing just recently. I don't know if anybody was able to attend his services or whatever, but they had a card that they handed out, and I just thought it was appropriate considering what we're going through with strategic planning and trying to find the verbiage and the right words to make a difference, in what we do. And it was a quote from him that said, "All students have to do is find and use that speck of greatness they have in themselves and run with it the rest of their life." And he was part of the Unconditional Caring Learning Academy, and every student matters. So I thought that was very appropriate, and as to what we do and how we are plotting our course ahead in the direction we're seeking with strategic planning and everything else. And also just to give a tip of the hat and a nod to him, because he was made an impression on so many people within the community and within the school, and he had so many people that he steered their lives in different directions. So I just wanted to give a nod to Bill Noun. And
Thank you.
We had talked about graduation again, and which board members were planning to attend, because that's probably important for them as they plan, just to know who plans to attend, if you plan to attend 1 or 2 of the graduations. So, Linda, yes. Both of them?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
So-
Lisa?
I mean, I would like to attend at least one of them, but if we're going to count toward that 500 cap,
Right.
I would,
We don't.
No, you do
yeah,
not.
I don't. We don't count.
We don't.
No.
We're told we don't.
Oh, okay.
It's the spectators, the spectators are the ones that count as the 500.
Okay, because I didn't want to take away from a parent being able to go. Yeah, so I mean, I can do. Is the first one at 9:45, and when is the second one?
I believe it's 9 and 11.
And 11:30. Yeah.
Rita?
Okay. Yeah, I can do both of them then. And do we have to wear our caps and gowns, or is it just,
So in the past, I don't believe the board members wore cap and gowns. Just the
Okay.
administrators did. So
Perfect.
Heather, I definitely will be going to Jack's. And I don't know if his will be the first one or the second one. So I'll get back to you on both of them.
Okay, very good.
Once I find out.
Excellent. Jim?
I didn't have a plan to attend.
Okay. And that's perfectly fine. Let's see, Pam, I'm assuming you're attending.
I'm attending both.
Okay. I could have guessed that one. Kathleen?
I'm pretty sure I'll be out of town visiting my daughter that weekend.
Okay. Tom?
I am to be determined. I don't know as of yet, but I will check and get back to you ASAP.
Okay. I got everyone, right? Okay, the other thing I had is we definitely want to plan a couple of retreats in July or workshops. I need to get Sean's input on his timing as well, like what works for him. I'm not exactly sure what his work schedule is, but if you all could just kind of keep that in the back of your heads and think about, when you're going on vacation, and maybe at the next board meeting, I believe Sean will be joining us, and maybe we can revisit this conversation and maybe come up with a couple of dates that'll work for us as we move to try and plan those and make them as productive as possible. And
I'm sorry, can I just say, congratulations, Tom, for winning another seat for 3 more years.
Thank you.
Congratulations is in order. No, we're really glad that you're staying on and we get to, get your expertise and your thoughtfulness for another 3 years. I think that's wonderful. So, and Nita, you will be missed. I'm glad we have one more meeting with you, but you will definitely be missed. I don't know if you rewatched the meeting, but Tom said some very nice things about you at the last meeting, and I'm sure I do know we all agree. So thank you so much for your service.
I did, and thank you very much for the kind messages. I really appreciate it.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. At this time,
Can I actually, sorry, just chime in. Heather made me think of something when she mentioned the word workshop, and I'm not looking for more work, whether a separate workshop or a discussion during a meeting, but we have typically been getting fund balance projections every month, but we haven't gotten it since the beginning of April. I imagine we're going to be getting it again soon, I hope. But at the end of every fiscal year, a board is asked to deal with that surplus money, the money that is not spent for that year. And being new to the board, I don't know how the other new members or even veteran members feel, but how that money is utilized, whether it be towards, the tax revenue, whether it be towards, by putting it into the next budget, whether it be to our reserve funds. What reserve funds can do one thing, what reserve funds can do another thing. And I think it's really important to understand all of those rules and regulations so that we make the best decision with whatever fund balance there may be. So because we haven't seen the fund balance in a while and we haven't really had that kind of discussion, I don't know if it's for a regular board meeting or a workshop, but I do think that information will help me help us make a better decision.
Understand. So first, in terms of the fund balance, we can get that out to the board. We'll make sure we share that with you all right away. And then in terms of a workshop or presentation, it's really up to the board. Might be best for a workshop topic. Jim brought up some good ideas in terms of topics. I'm not sure how many would like to have that, but it's really up to the discretion of the board. We can do it however you wish. A topic on those, or a workshop on those items, certainly we can accommodate for you, or if you want a presentation during a board meeting, it's really up to whatever the board would like to have.
I don't have a personal preference, which it is. But I do think it's important, honestly, as part of our consent agendas, and even before I was a board member, one of the things being interested in the board, consent agendas actually didn't have paperwork attached to them. They were always under the administrative, not the public part. And I petitioned previous boards to put that as part of the public aspect, because knowing the finances, I think, is important. So I think it is important to have that fund balance projection put out there every month as part of our consent agenda. So I appreciate reporting to the board, but I also do think it should be a common practice to have all of those consent agenda items, those on a monthly basis, and to make them public, so the voters know around budget time what is everything we're dealing with.
Well, I think there might be a question embedded in there, Nancy. I think he's asking why we get them monthly sometimes and other times we don't.
Having a part-time treasurer is a little difficult. John tries to get me all of the reports and the projections as possible, but I'll make sure that you get them in a more timely manner.
So I'm not sure, Heather, does the board just want to kind of let us know what you would like? If you would like a workshop, we can create that, or maybe embed that in a retreat this summer. Or if you'd like a presentation, we can do a presentation. I understand Jim's request, and we will provide whatever the board wants. So I'm not sure, do you want to think that through, or?
So I'll just say, just because I've been chiming in, and then I'll be quiet because I know Linda wants to say something.
No, I don't.
Oh, sorry, I saw your hand up, Linda. If we have to commit the fund balance in a particular time period because of rules and regulations, my only request is that we get the information well beforehand so that we not only hear it, but that we have time to digest it before we have to make a decision about how to allocate it. So I really don't care when it is or what format, but if there's something like when July 1 hits, you've got 30, 60 days to do something, I'm making that up. But whatever it is, I want to make sure that we have time to not only learn, but that we have time to think and digest it so that we do make those decisions appropriately, because we could, again, this year be talking about $2-3 million. I don't know what the number is, but it's usually a large amount. Right. So I just, again, want to make sure that we're making these decisions in an informed manner.
Right. So, yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is, first of all, you want to understand the process. What happens when we get, what can we do from what can't we do, right? And then you're saying, hey, we need to know what the amount is, right? Way in advance as best as possible so that we can make an informed decision. I do think that if those are the pieces that are there, whether it's a presentation or workshop, I think it would be beneficial. I think it's important to have the information so that you can make the best informed decision. So however the board wishes to do that, again, if you want a workshop or if you want a presentation where you can ask questions during your board meeting, whatever you wish, we will provide that for the board. I see Tom and Linda have questions there.
Mathis, is it in my understanding that, I think I'm recollecting this, that typically we do get the printout, but then a recommendation comes from you and the treasurer and the budget person. Yes. Then you come back with your recommendation and you tell us your justification for why you're recommending what you are. So I think if we understood the various places you can place money and what the rules are around them,
yes,
then we could say to you, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But yeah, Jim, that's what I remember.
Yeah. I mean, so there's
So it's like a presentation.
Yes. So there's like 3 brand new board members. And I agree, right? Being able to make that informed decision. Well, now we're going to have a 4th new board member. So it makes sense to offer that information, that support.
Right.
We certainly would have no problem with doing that. We understand. Yes. Tom, I think you wanted to say something. Then Nancy, I see your hand.
No, I think you basically explained it as we go through the process. I would say the sooner the better, but if we're going to make the decision after the 4th member is boarded on, then I think we need to just make sure that he's included in that process too. If we're going to make it before the presentation will be good, but if it's after that, it'll be fine.
So really, it has to be done before the end of the year. So I think either before the workshop soon or at the next meeting, we could do it to make a decision for the last meeting in June.
Now, Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, I just want to make sure we have to have don't we have to have an audit of the budget before, so we'll know exactly how much is left over for the next year? You can do it before.
No, because Dr. Calvin, they're just estimates. And it's an estimate. So that's why we always bring it forward saying up to. And per Tom Zuber from Engel, Metzger and Barr, he always says, well, shoot high in case you have more money and you need to put it into reserves.
Okay, I understand. All right. So would you like for me to maybe bring a presentation to the board at our next meeting on that process? Would that be something the board would be all right with? And then that'll give you a little time to kind of think that through a little bit. Is that all right for everybody? Okay, so just so I'm clear, we'll bring a presentation on where monies can go, right? And then also how they have to be transferred to make sure people understand what is from what isn't. And then we'll try to give you some ideas of what we're looking at in terms of the end of the year leftovers. We'll also get you a fund balance report as well, so that prior to the meeting, so you'll know what's there. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, because I sort of wonder, we had kind of planned a 4:00
workshop with
orientation. I wonder if we replace that now with this particular presentation instead, start the meeting at 4, have a presentation that is open to the public as well, I suppose,
sure.
Correct? And because I think it's probably more timely and more important right now that everybody be on the same page with this particular information than general board roles. So what do other people feel about that?
I agree totally.
Okay. All right. And then
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what was asked because somehow I got kicked out.
Oh, no.
Jim, we're thinking about replacing the 4:00 board orientation and kind of welcome to this particular topic instead, and do this presentation at 4, open to the public, and we'll just start our meeting at 4 if it works for everybody, because I do think this information is very important and probably timely.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I actually, sorry I didn't bring this up a meeting or two ago, because I'm glad I asked now, because if we have to make this decision by July 1, we don't have a lot of meetings left. So yeah, the sooner the better. And if we need to use that meeting, I'm fully in support of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Does everybody agree? Okay. Karen, can you communicate with Sean about that, just so that he's not expecting something that we're not doing, and so he understands what we are doing? Thank you.
Will he be sitting in on that as well, though? Heather, yes?
I've invited him. I thought so.
I mean, it would be good to hear the process no matter what. It would be great.
Yeah, no, we invited him to that meeting and obviously to the board orientation at 4. So it was my understanding he was planning to come. I think he was going to contact Karen though. So
I'll verify it with him.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Any other items from the board? Next is the executive session. That the Board of Education move to executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person and collective negotiations. Could I have a motion?
Before someone motions, I forgot Linda's thing. She wanted to discuss the getting together again as a board in person. Linda, do you still want to have that conversation now, or do you want to put it to the next meeting?
I just think that I'm hearing a lot of people saying that we want to get back to normal. As a board, I'm also getting people saying, when are you guys going to get back at the table? And I don't have an answer for them.
Right. I do think we still are required to wear masks and socially distance, especially if we're inside. Is that right, Dr. Calvin?
Yes, yes, for the governor. From the governor, yes. In school settings, yes.
Okay, so so that would still be a requirement. I think the outside concept is really attractive, but I think we may have trouble with recording. I'm not sure. Would it be possible, Dr. Kelvin, to maybe chat with Mr. Bach and see what possibilities there might be for us? Because I'm not sure what facilities we have in terms of, spacing out. And I do know that some board members, are kind of requesting to not meet until their whole families are vaccinated, and to wearing the masks is problematic in terms of having conversation. So, all of those things are at play.
Yes, we certainly do have some spaces we can do outside. We do have some indoor places as well that if the board wishes that we could socially distance people out inside as well. Or, we have a couple auditoriums, some, gymatoriums, cafetoriums, basically. So there are some spaces around the district that we could certainly utilize if the board wishes to do so.
Is it possible that if there is 1, 2, 3 individuals that are not comfortable meeting around a group of tables, that they could Zoom in?
That is possible.
And still, so the people that want to be at the table and represent the board can do that, and yet they can still be part of the board and have input.
Yeah.
It's just another idea.
Yes, we live stream every day our classes, so I do think that is an opportunity we can do. Yes, if the board wishes to do that, I do believe we will be able to accomplish that.
I had a question relative to the masking and social distancing. If we're outside the 6 feet, then do we need to use masks?
If you're outside?
Yes, if we're farther than, if we're 7 feet apart or 8 feet apart, do we need to use masks for that? What I'm suggesting is the Oswego, the theater at the high school, everyone's separated and not having to wear masks, so being outside the social distance recommendations. Or do we need it because it's a school setting, we have to wear the mask?
Let me double check. I want to make sure I check the guidance so I don't say the wrong thing. I know at our sporting events, we still ask people to wear their mask wherever possible. For sure. So I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. So I'll double check that and I'll send it out to the board. But I do know, if you're socially distanced, you're outside. There are people who are in board meetings now who do, take off the mask, but they're definitely socially distanced. And there's a lot of space between them. And I think outside, it would be okay. But I would just need to double check that, looking at the guidance and check with the health department to make sure we're right on.
Yeah, I think whatever we do, we need to honor, people's caution right now if they do feel, insecure about getting out or, want to protect their families. But Linda, that's an idea that you just recommended. That's a possibility. So I don't really know technology that well to understand what is possible and what isn't in terms of recording outside and also the zooming in. So maybe those are options that we can explore in addition to fully understanding the regulations with masks and social distancing if we're inside.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I know our city legislature is meeting, and I've had a couple of people off that question me, why are you guys not meeting?
Are they wearing masks, Linda? I don't know.
I don't know. And because, they're doing it.
But sometimes you trade being in person for being able to see someone's entire face. So, it's almost 6 in one, half a dozen in the other sometimes. But I think what we can do is maybe come up with some options and then at the next meeting, vote on them. And we will have, Sean can be there as well to put some input, because I think our reorg meeting is really what we want, maybe to kick off with, maybe being outside or having other options.
Well, then we have to address the public too. Can they come in? Do we have to distance? How many can come in? Because I know there's a lot of people that like Pam was, that like to go to those meetings before she became a board member. People that are there all the time. So
I'm not really sure I liked it. I think it was a matter of necessity.
Well, it served you well.
Right. So that's just another complication that we'll definitely have to decide on. And I think, kind of come up with a whole package as to how we're going to approach July 1st, because we're also going to have to do our oaths of office and such.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if I could get a motion from the Board of Education to move to executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person and collective negotiations. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Or
Tom, I have you as a first. Could I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Would there be a need for a vote after executive session? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session. Have a good night.
right.